It's a statement of overriding consideration.
A statement of overriding consideration. Okay, but to get there, there has to be anywhere between $50,000 and $60,000 that has to be spent now to get there. Okay, and that would help this particular project. But the city, we would still have to come up with a game plan, long term. Okay, and that money either has to be picked up by the developer, and he can take his chances there, or some other option that we would then discuss. Whether or not that's the city, or that we're going to make the developer, etc. Because there's folks that say, developers have to pay their own way. Okay, so those really are the options that we have on the table now. So we're trying to find out, what the council would like to do, and educate the public in terms of how this all came about, and then what direction we should be heading.
Thank you. Answer the question. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Gabriel. Anybody else have any questions from the public or phone?
Yeah, I think we have a little bit more to provide, and I'm sure there'll probably be some more questions some questions a little further down the road. So I think that, Ed, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Ed is with Myers-Navi. He's part of our legal staff. So, of course, we discussed all these with legal, and I think this would be a good opportunity, Ed, to kind of talk about the legal considerations related to the different options that we kind of talked about today.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, so, this is a complicated problem, and I think the other gentlemen tonight have done a good job of sort of explaining the options. So I don't have a whole lot more to add. A few considerations, though, for the city-owned mitigation bank option. One is, you would have to, in addition to the biological work that Charlie talked about in terms of figuring out whether that's enough of the right kind of habitat and whatnot, you're also going to have to set up programs for funding that mitigation. You can't, if it's public property, you can't just give it away to developers. There's got to be some sort of public benefit from it, and so you may need to set up some sort of fee program or some sort of mitigation bank program whereby developers are paying into the city and basically purchasing those credits from the city instead of from one of these other mitigation banks that are out there. And you could probably set the dollar value at a reduced value, but it's not like you can give it away for free. So that's sort of the major sort of legal consideration with that third option of establishing your own mitigation bank. The other two options are more or less straightforward and more or less private transactions. The developer can purchase his own credits from one of the private mitigation banks, or the city can assist in helping the developer locate a third party, a private entity that you could secure some sort of credits for, some sort of mitigation for on those properties. But the city wouldn't have anything to do with the transaction. We'd just sort of be looking at whether or not whatever they did was adequate for CEQA purposes to mitigate those impacts. So I too am available to answer any questions that anybody has.
Thank you, Ed.
Yeah, I think what I can do here is I can ask some questions that some of the public might have, but not at this moment in time. But like, for instance, Charlie, at the opening statement, when we began the workshop, we know that this, red hawktail, migrates over to South America and so forth. Okay, so, somebody in the audience might say, hey, well, if bird leaves, legends leave, then the problem's gone. Is that the case?
You're asking, Jose, if the bird leaves, does the problem go away, like seasonally? No, it doesn't. In the eyes of the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, which is an expert agency with reasons for their viewpoints, their viewpoint on a Swainson's hawk is once a nest is occupied, it's considered a nesting site for 5 years at least. And because of I can't remember the right word for this, but anyway, the faithfulness of the hawks to their nesting location, it can be expected that they will return in coming years. And now that there's a record, the record of nesting that's established this year goes into a statewide database that now will show the Livingston area as supporting a Swainson's hawk nest. So, the related impacts of that. So, and it's likely to come up elsewhere too, as time goes on. And I didn't mention before that, and this is kind of paradoxical, but the hawk, even though it is a threatened species, does appear to be expanding its range, and it has been considered by the state, their biologists, for delisting, but that's a big step for anybody to take, and they've so far just kicked the can down the road. So it remains a listed species that has to be dealt with under CEQA.
Yeah.
I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're just doing hypotheticals here, even though I know the answer. I want people, so we can get,
Sure,
questions
sure.
out there. Another question would be, Ed, if we went the route of doing a full EIR and doing a statement of overriding considerations, what, at that point, once the city, or let's say that the council at that moment in time says, okay, we're going to adopt the statement of overriding consideration, what does that mean, moving forward?
Yeah, so there's two parts. Thanks, Jose. There's two parts to that. First, in order to find that you can adopt a statement of overriding considerations, you have to also make a finding that there is no feasible mitigation measures, and so the council would have to make a finding that purchasing those mitigation credits is infeasible for this project. So that's step one. Then step two is adopting the statement of, well, step two is preparing the EIR. But after you prepare the EIR, you need to adopt a statement of overriding considerations, which is basically a document that says, based on the facts before us, we, the council, think that the public benefits of this project outweigh the environmental impacts that we found, and therefore we're going to override them and allow the project to move forward, notwithstanding the fact that it's still going to have significant and unavoidable impacts. But that's a process that you can only do by going through the longer, more complicated EIR process.
Jose, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Who's chairing the meeting right now? This is Paul.
Oh, it's Councilmember Aguilar.
Mayor Pro Tem, may I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, for the presenter, I didn't get the name. If the Swenson Hawk is considered delisting, can that be taken into consideration for the mitigation at all? Or do we still have to do full-blown mitigation?
I was going to take a quick whack at that, Ed, and maybe you want to polish up what I say a little bit. But the fact that it's been considered for delisting is kind of trumped by the fact that it hasn't been delisted. It is still listed. So I would say that would be a consideration that could go into a statement of override. The council could find that we think that, this is kind of a bogus issue and we don't really, think it's worth all this effort. But that would be contrary to the fact of, the expert agencies and the listing status itself. So I think it's kind of there's a dim hope in there, but not much. So
But if the state is already, I know sometimes state and government does move at its own pace sometimes, but if it's already under consideration, then we should be able to, like you said, put that in there and then consider it that way. So, Jose, I would like to find out a little more about that, please. If it's
Sure, it's on the line. He's going to share a little bit more.
Then we should be able to, I'd like to get a little more clarification on it. I don't want to go through, in my view, to go through all these mitigation measures and with the general plan and everything else we're working on. And by the time we finish the general plan, we already spent the dollars doing this, and all of a sudden we list it, and then we're saying, what do we spend that money for? So I'd like to get a little more information on that.
Hey, Ed, can you chime in there?
Yeah, sure. We can certainly check into the delisting status. That's not a process that happens overnight. They'd have to make a proposal for it and get public comments, and it would take, at minimum 6 months to a year. So we would have notice of it well before we would finish or even start necessarily the general plan process. In the absence of an actual delisting proposal or delisting decision, however, the law is still the law, and it's still considered a special status species or threatened species. And so we would need legally to take that under consideration in our CEQA document or risk challenge on those grounds.
Yeah, and we can also hold off on the mitigation so we go through the process, so we can move the project forward with understanding from the applicants of the project that this may come back where you have to mitigate for it, but we can move the project this time forward. That can be done, correct?
If I understood the question, the project can move forward if we adopt a statement of overriding considerations and tell them they don't have to mitigate, assuming we can make the appropriate findings, then yes, the project could move forward.
Okay.
With the expenditure of the EAR being somewhere between 50 and 60,000 there, and that money would have to be we have to come up with that either from the developer or if the city would entertain that.
Excuse me. It may be a conversation to have with the applicants and the project that are coming forward, but I think we should definitely be looking towards that. I don't want to commit a whole lot of mitigation measures if we need to do that, but also don't want to stall the project, so we need to come up with some sort of solution. So we'll look at that. And thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem, I'll let you take the meeting back.
Thank you, sir. I have a quick question. So we did the statement of override consideration. So what, we adopted and all of that. What are the consequences, like, moving forward in the future? Like, what would happen if they come down on the city? Like, do you guys have any information regarding that?
Yeah.
So this is Ed again. Generally speaking, if anybody's going to sue you on approval of a project under CEQA, they have to provide you public comments during the public comment period on that. So we would be aware of any potential, plaintiffs coming down the line to sue the city on a project before the city has a chance to approve the project. The state AG's office does sometimes get involved in local project approvals, but generally they're on sort of more massive scale type projects like whole county-wide, general plan updates for like San Diego County or something like that, or, big rail projects or that sort of thing. So it happens, but it's rare, and it usually only happens on really big projects with really big impacts.
But there is some kind of risk.
Yeah, there's always risk anytime you do a statement of override that somebody could sue you on it. You could have the Friends of the Swainson's Hawk show up and say, you guys can't do this. That sort of stuff does happen. But we would know about that ahead of time and know the risk level involved.
I have another question. In regards to the habitat, if there's, for example, the Los Baños off of 165, the wetlands over there, like in regards to moving the hawk or locating the hog. Is that a possibility?
I'll speak to that. But in my experience and understanding, that's not a possibility. That they don't go with the nest. They make their own choices. When they come into the territory, and if the nest tree were gone, they would go somewhere else. That would be their nature to do that. But otherwise, no, there's no feasible way that I know of that we could relocate the nest.
Thank you.
And there's instances, Councilmember Aguilar, where the tree needed to be cut down or whatever. Of course, there's mitigation factors with that, and of course the implications are a lot more heftier. Okay, and so we definitely would like to stay away from that.
In regards to the way I see this item, obviously there's a short-term impact that we need to address. In regards to this being an important project, I believe it is an important project due to the housing, situation in Livingston and the state. But also definitely have to start considering the long-term planning for this. I agree with the mayor in regards to getting more information regarding the statement of override and consideration. Exactly how would it look. Like you mentioned, Jose, that it would cost the city around $50,000-$60,000. I think a discussion needs to be made with the developer if that's something they would be willing to obviously pay, in order to do this. But at the same time, I know they mentioned it's a lengthy process. It could be a lengthy process up to 6 months. Is that something that developers willing to wait and hold on? At the same time, I know there's been a lot of concerns in regards to the city picking up the fees, or that's, I don't think the city is able to do that. I do believe the developer needs to have some responsibility. It is a big project, and considering the amount of the project versus the amount it's going to cost, I believe it could be feasible, and maybe further discussions needed. But that's our thoughts I have right now.
So if staff can get a little bit of direction in terms of, talking to the project owner about, these possibilities. So the statement of overriding consideration, pick up the tab. Ed went ahead and explained, kind of, what, if there's any landmines, what those landmines could look like, okay? And then also what the cost is associated with elevating the negative declaration to a full EIR. And then into the future, we're looking at, the impacts and how we can address some of those things through the full EIR, through the general. This is a short-term project. I mean, this is a short window, so we have to look at the short-term solution here. And so if we were to do a statement of overriding consideration, we would then, and let's say the developer pays for it, we know kind of what the roadmap is going to look like. Okay? And the reason this is coming for you now rather than, waiting later is that the developer also has a window of development. One is, of course, associated with the season, but two, it's also associated with undergrounding the canals that are out there. And so that's another reason why this has a little more urgency, because then they have to wait for that specific portion until the next watering year after it's all, the water season has come.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think there's something urgent that we need to address and get more information. In regards to the long-term effects of it, we could consider it with the general planning or other options. But I would like to see if council has any further questions or any questions that you would like to ask. Go ahead.
So I have a question. Yeah. Hey Ed, this is Jose. Can you hear me, Ed?
Go ahead, Dave. Yeah.
So Ed, so it sounds like council's looking at going in the direction of asking the developer, hey, can you pick up the tab for, the full EIR to do a statement overriding consideration, and then coupled with, hey, you know what, this Red Hawk should be unlisted as an endangered species. How do you see all that kind of coming together? And then, of course, either Zoom or Charlie can chime in terms of the overall roadmap.
Yeah, so in terms of the developer paying his own way on the EIR, I mean, that's pretty much standard for development projects throughout the state. Most development projects I work on, the developer pays for the CEQA document, and that's not usually something that's questioned. So, we could certainly, a lot of the work has already been done because a lot of the work has been done for the mitigated neg deck. We need to revise the analysis and expand some of the analysis to deal with the hawk issue. There's some other components to an EIR that aren't included in an MND, a mitigated neg deck. Like you have to look at alternatives to the project when you look at an EIR, that sort of thing. So it'd be a little bit bigger of a document, a little bit more complicated, but it's not like you're starting from square one on it because you've already done a lot of the work for the project in terms of the environmental analysis. So then in terms of when we get, down the line to potentially approving the project, potentially adopting a statement of overriding considerations, we would certainly, work with staff, work with the developer on coming up with that draft statement and making it as bulletproof as possible in terms of the findings necessary to override the impacts from, impacting, for instance, hawk habitat.
Ed, this is Charlie. Could I add just one thing to what you're saying? It's just a point. It just keeps recurring to me, and that is that looking down the road at the statement of override, you mentioned two important points. One is benefits outweigh the impacts, but the other is the council needs to find that there's no feasible mitigation, and coming up with the substantial evidence to support that would probably involve some additional technical studies, like what would it cost to mitigate? Paying other people to do that, those are easy numbers to come up with, but are there, other feasible means that the city would consider or not? And maybe the city doesn't want to put up any land for cost, for a fee or no fee, for under any circumstances. But anyway, that material would need to be documented also.
Thank you. That definitely makes sense. That we'll need all that supporting evidence or information for that. What bottom line is we understand the importance of the project. We want to make it work, and at the same time, we want to make sure that we're responsible and for our community, and the city is able to mitigate this with a developer in a responsible way. Any further questions, anybody?
Okay, well, staff has clear direction, so that's what we'll do, and then we'll be coming back to council and with whatever we find out as it relates to after sitting down with the developer in terms of whether or not he thinks this option is viable for him.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay, so now we're going to move into item number 2, which is the budget workshop. I know it's 6:35 p.m. We want to jump in.
Yeah,
go ahead,
Councilmember Aguilar. We, of course, can at 7 adjourn this and then start.
Yeah.
the meeting, and then
I think that's a good plan.
and then we can continue with the workshop and then go to the other items.
Thanks for time.
Yeah, and then we can go back to the workshop.
Yes, definitely. We'll adjourn at 7 with a workshop, and then we'll continue after.
All right. Well, before Vanessa gets started and the rest of my staff, I just want to thank you all for the dedication associated with putting together this budget document. It's never easy, and we much appreciate it. I also wanted to communicate to the council and the public that we actually started looking at having reductions across the board in our actual budget of 2019-2020, and that was because of the personnel costs that we knew where it was going. And then now that we have the pandemic, we are also looking at the sales tax revenues taking a huge dip, as well as some other revenues. So with this budget in mind, we're going into a $300,000 deficit, and we're trying to find any way possible to address so that we don't have to dip into our reserves and address this $300,000 deficit. And so we're looking at everything. Everything's on the table, from furloughs to freezing positions to folks doing a little bit more, doing cross-training, et cetera. So we're going to be looking for solutions. And so this is a great opportunity for the council and the public to participate in this budget workshop. We plan on having other budget workshops. This is our first budget workshop, so thank you very much, Vanessa.
Thank you, the manager, and for migrating us from BERT to budget this evening. Good evening, Mayor, council members, members of the public, city staff. I'm Vanessa Portillo, Finance Director. Today we have budget workshop number 1 for the proposed budget 2020-2021.
Vanessa, you want us to wait up to the end for questions, or is it okay we jump in and we have something to ask? Or you just want to have like a discussion workshop? Is that okay? Thank you.
You know, I'm hoping to get as much as possible. That's okay. Thank you. Thank you. Well, this is an overview of tonight's presentation. We will go over our budget for content, our budget terminology, the budget process, some of the highlights for our general fund, the highlights for the departments that receive support from the general fund, and some of our next steps as far as the general fund. I just wanted to share that the budget is available online, and you can find it on our website, livingston.city.com. It is part of our front page. You can see it, fiscal year 2020-21 proposed budget for any members of the public that would like to access our document is available. The budget book that you have received, council, and also available to the public. It is composed of the different sections. We have an introduction section, we have a fund description section, we have summaries of the major funds in the city. We have the operations section, which is basically where each one of the departments and each one of each one of their budgets and what they're going to be spending their money on. We have a section for projects, vehicles, equipment, any kind of like projects that are going on with the city. You can find it in this section. In our miscellaneous area, it's somewhat of a page for the city demographics, any kind of like the population, the history of the city. It's just a quick snapshot of our city. As far as budget terminology, you will see that you will find us talking about the revenue types and first, we are a full-service city. Meaning that most of our city services are provided in-house. Revenue types, we talk about discretionary revenues, meaning that they're available for use at the discretion of the city council. Some of that discretionary revenue, our sales tax or property tax falls into that category. Which means that we receive this money and it is available to fund or to support any part of the city's main operations. We also have non-discretionary revenue, which is basically dollars coming into the city that are supposed to be used for specific purposes. Some of that funding, you can see it in our districts. It's a good example that if money is coming for the districts are basically trigger and earmarked only specific for district expenses only. Also within our expenditure types, you will see us talking about personnel, which means wages and benefits of our full-time and part-time employees. We have our maintenance and operations that basically covers the cost of anything that is not related to personnel. It would be anything as far as utilities, contract services, any type of vehicle maintenance, our gas, our water service, like postage, telephone. We also have a line item for vehicle equipment improvements, which we try to separate any kind of major improvements and special projects, so that way council can or the members of the public can just quickly see that any kind of big purchases for the city, and also they tend to be one-time money, the purchase of a forklift or any kind of major structural improvements that would be listed under this section. We also have, we talk about the fund balance, which is any kind of excess resources, much our savings account, what we have in reserve that is available for use in terms of uncertain emergencies or uncertain expenditures. We have a fund balance. Within the fund balance, we have two different kinds of categories. We have the unassigned fund balance, which is used at discretion of the council, and we also have assigned fund balance that normally it is addressed to a specific purpose. So, for example, we may have a assigned reserve fund for pension liability, or something for debt service, or something to cover street improvements, or any kind of uncertain economic volatility or something like that. This is not working. Thank you. As far as the budget process, I wanted to also show you just a quick snapshot of what it takes for the finance department and all of the city departments to put a budget book together. It normally is a 6-month venture. We start our budget process early in January. by collecting all of the expenditure information. Normally what we do is we look at our 6-month experience since our fiscal year starts in July. So we look at July through December, and by January we can have a really good, we're certain that we can project what the next year's expenditures would be. We normally, by January, know that if there's any kind of personnel changes, any kind of labor agreements, cost of living increases that need to take place in the following year, we can already calculate and project those into our expenditures. We also look into any kind of like inflation markers for any type of like projects or contracts and future services. So in January, it's most of our expenditure focused work. It takes place. We normally by March, we did all of our revenue projections from either the state of California and from our county as far as property taxes and sales taxes and any other kind of special revenue that comes through that we get funds for. And at that time, we are certain that between January and March, we are able to put this budget book together, and we can take it upon we can have a solid projection to share with city manager and be able to have a budget draft or review. Normally, our district budgets they come to the council for review in May. And that is because they have to get on the county tax roll by August, so they have a little bit of more of a shorter time frame. But once those get approved in June, we normally bring the budget book and the budget estimates to council for them to be reviewed and approved to have a solid annual plan put together and for our new fiscal year to start in July. As I share with you, I'll go back here, between January and March, we know that we will have projections for expenditures and revenues altogether. What we have next, it's a chart that I'm trying to tell you the story of what happened between March and June of this year. We had a projected budget of in 2019-2020. Council approved it of $6.1 million in revenues with expenditures of $6.5 million. In this chart for 2019, we know that our expenditures exceeded revenues because we had some one-time expenses that took place that were approved by council, and we tap into our reserves by exceeding the revenue dollars that we received. However, January and March came along, and we had this pre-pandemic budget that we were expecting. You can see that our revenues from $6.1 million, we were expecting to receive about $6.4 million. We had taken out any kind of one-time expenses, so our expenses were able to be lower than what they were in 1920. And at the end of the day, we were ending the year on a positive and putting some money into our reserves. That story changed after March, and we had to quickly adjust our revenue projections because once the pandemic was with us, and we knew how much it had affected our businesses and all of the sectors in between, we had to do adjustments in some of our revenue projections. One of them, it was our sales taxes, and that is mainly what you're seeing here. We have tonight a budget that it is using reserves because our revenues are definitely lower than our expenditures, and this is what we will be talking about tonight. Some of our budget highlights. Overall, the city is proposing a budget for all of the revenues throughout all of its funds of about $40.4 million. Majority of this money is coming from taxes, from charges for services, and the intergovernmental funding, meaning that it's either coming from grant money or that or any other money allocated that is coming through the state or any other federal funding. Expenditures for all funds, this is including projects. It's at $55.3 million. We have included here all of the projects that we are anticipating to start working on for fiscal year 2020-21. Personnel makes up about $7.9 million of our budget. Maintenance and operations, $9 million. We have vehicles and equipment and improvements at $2.2 million, and transfers out of $1.5 million. Transfers out are monies that are coming between one fund to another fund. In order for us to be able to reflect this exchanges of money between transfers, we have to include in this category of transfer out. So, for example, the general fund supporting a department, giving support to a department, say community development or the gas tax, you will see that money reflected on a transfer out. Some of the major projects, either new or continuing, that we have for the city are in our wastewater and water funds. We have the CDBG sewer line replacement. We have the well 8 and 9 repairs and replacements. We have the Renton Parkway widening project, Hammett and Temple improvements, the police station roof repair, and we also have an IT server replacement project that is part of the budget that we are including tonight. I will go over some of the highlights for the general fund. For the general fund, we have revenue at $5.7 million. 58% of those revenues come from taxes, either property or sales taxes. That is one of the quite vulnerable revenue streams that we are looking into throughout the year since the pandemic started. Sales taxes were one of the major revenue sources that we were put on alert to watch and to monitor. Intergovernmental funding comes at $1.6 million. Transfers in of $20,000, and transfers in is also funds from a different fund that is coming to support. I believe this transfer in is a $20,000 transfer that is matched for the fire department to do some sort of buying some sort of equipment. We have use of money on property at $28,000, licenses and permits, which is our business license. Majority of this is our business license. It's at $125,000, and charges for fees and services at $181,000. Our general fund revenue trends. This is just a quick chart that summarizes where our revenue sources come from. Majority, as you can see, we're highly dependent on taxes. So whenever sales tax or property tax is being raised, that there is some sort of change or volatility, our radar goes up, and we have to monitor very closely on those trends. Our expenditures for the general fund, they're coming in at $6 million. As you can see, majority of this, 70% of our expenditures are in the personnel area, meaning wages for salaries and benefits of our staff members. We have $1.3 million in maintenance and operations, vehicles and equipment at $45,000, and this transfers out. This is coming in at $489,000, and that was what I had explained. Anything that the general fund is providing support to other budget units. In this case, the general fund provides support to 3 budget units, which are recreation, community development, and gas tax, and that makes up for the $489,000.
You think part of your we think what the supposed to use the general fund for,
Our general fund normally.
Hey, Vanessa. Vanessa.
Yes.
If you can respond to that question, and then just for the mayor, we can stop and then start our regular scheduled meeting, and then at the back end we can reinstitute the budget workshop again.
Sure.
So go ahead.
Absolutely. Our general fund is paid for our city's, our city main services, which is police, fire, some of the administrative expenses and maintenance and operations of the city. A portion of our general fund is used for maintaining the streets. The majority of the funds that we received to maintain and upkeep the roads are coming from discretionary funding, non-discretionary funding, which is our gas tax.
So at this point, we're taking a little pause on our budget workshop. We will reconvene back to our workshop after the regularly scheduled council meeting, which is going to initiate in a few minutes. So thank you very much. We appreciate everybody. So you can stay on the line if you're interested in the regularly scheduled council meeting.
Councilmember Baptista, Councilmember Kane,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia,
Present.
Mayor Samra,
Present.
all present.
Okay, thank you very much. Changes to the agenda, any changes to the agenda, council? City manager? Seeing no one come forward, we'll go to the announcements report. I don't see Supervisor Espinoza here, so we'll go to staff announcements report. We'll start out with recreation. Fire department.
Do I need my phone first or no? I haven't set it up. Okay. Okay. It's working. Good evening, City Council, Mayor, members of the public. It's been a little bit since we did a report. We thought it'd take time to make a quick report for you guys, give you an update to this last month's runs and our year-end totals. So for July, we ran in the city 313 medical aids, 3 code blues, 1 veg fire, 3 vehicle accidents, 1 vehicle fire, 1 debris fire, an alarm sounding, and a false alarm. Incidents in the county, we had 25 medical aids, 15 veg fires, 11 vehicle accidents, 6 vehicle fires, 8 structure fires, 4 debris fires, 5 alarms sounding. For our year-to-date, we're at 1,114 calls. 725 of those were inside the city limits. 389 were in the county, and we have a 70% response rate from our PCS, and 78% of our calls are within either the city or our First-in area in the county. And our call volume is up 4% from the end of July of last year. So we did have a slowdown when COVID first started, and then since then we've been running a lot of COVID-related calls, but they don't tell us whether or not they're actually COVID. The doctors do the diagnosis, and they don't inform us afterwards or not whether they're COVID or not. So I can't tell you. But this last month in July, we ran 202 calls in the month, which is the most of any month, even last year's total. So our call volume was definitely up in July compared to the last 2 years for any single month. Not 20. So for training our paid staff, we did some hose evolutions, keeping our social distance, and our volunteers, in order to keep the distance, they did some online driver training. They keep their shirt up for every 4 years they have to do. Go ahead. So, as you know, with the COVID stuff, we've pretty much been having to do a lot of public stuff because all the public stuff has been closed down. However, we were able to show our support for the graduations during the drive-thrus. So the schools, we've sent out our trucks and fill up the flag for whatever school it was. There's still some support from the fire department, from the county to help support our. So I know last meeting there was a topic of the type 6. So since then there was a city and a state contract signed. And so with that contract signed, now the type 6 can run calls or go cover. And so right now it's actually up at Hornitas covering the CAL FIRE station up there with CAL FIRE personnel on it for the contract agreement. And that left yesterday around noon. And so I'm not for sure how many days I'll have it.
Captain or Jose, can you guys hear me? Can you guys explain, just for the public to know, what's the benefit or what's the reason why it's going out of county or out of the city?
Want me to take it?
Yeah.
So So one of the benefits of it is that whenever the state, they basically rent a piece of equipment from us. And so with that rate, which is agreed upon on the contract, Jose has set aside where most of that money comes back to replenish the aging fleet at the fire department. So as it goes out, they can keep a little bit to keep repairs and keep out state maintenance stuff that's on the type safety. And then the rest of it goes, like I said, to a reserve fund. So when we're ready, we could purchase a new truck or another, actually a new engine for the city. And that's the end of my report. Do you guys have any questions?
Yeah, I don't really have a question as much as a thank you to Cal Fire in the city. Last meeting, when I brought this to attention about E96 not being able to get used, the city manager, Cal Fire, everybody got together, got the proper paperwork signed, and now it's being used for what we purchased for within the city and everywhere else. So I want to thank Cal Fire and everybody else that got involved to resolve the issue.
Not a problem. Perfect timing with all the fires going on right now.
Yeah.
Guys have a good evening.
Fire department? Police department?
Greetings, Council, Mayor, Member of the Republic, Captain Sawyer, Livingston PD. Just wanted to kind of go over actually a couple things. One was, I know we've been getting a lot of complaints of different type of traffic violations, and I know that recently we had another shooting within the community. The first thing is I've gotten with staff and actually the supervisors, and we are going to come up with different ways to try to address these issues. One is I placed Sergeant Kang, who is going to be in charge of all traffic-related issues within the community. I have confidence in him to actually come up with different and innovative ways to actually address the issues, and they'll kind of consist of two parts. One will be educational, and then the next will be enforcement. It's not like a secret. We are going to be out there. We have to get ahead of the curve. I do not want what we've had in the past where we've had kids getting hit. I don't want that. Again, we're getting a lot of complaints of speeding, running stop signs, reckless driving, and then one of the biggest things I've heard of is the racing. So we're going to come up with different ways if we have to be unmarked, whatever we got to do to curb this type of behavior. I hopefully within our public, they can actually kind of police themselves by letting us know when this happens. I don't really want to go out and have to actually end up writing tickets, things of that nature, but I mean, we're going to do what we have to do to make sure that this does not happen anymore. Secondly, the recent shooting we had just had, and I know it's been about a month or so prior to the last one, still nonetheless, that's one is one too many. I want to thank Detective Coleman and again Sergeant Kang for actually running with it, seeing it through, and actually end up identifying the individual and putting him where he belongs in jail. And again, Sergeant Ramirez, who will actually be in charge of gangs and drugs, he will actually be coming up with ways that you will probably shortly be seeing. Obviously, I don't want to tip my hand because we're going to be out there and we're going to be enforcing things that to ensure that the public has the utmost confidence in our police department and that things like this do not happen anymore. I don't want this to go back to the way it was, so we're going to try again to stay ahead of the curve on this as well, and make sure that we can do everything we can to make sure that citizens of this community can walk the streets safely and not have to worry about anything like that. Other than that, I don't have anything else. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Council questions?
Yes, I got a couple of questions.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to answer or finance. I looked at the agenda, in 2005, we adopted a resolution having 1.5 officers for every 1,000 residents.
Yes.
Do we have that right now, or we?
No, we don't.
We don't.
No.
I noticed a lot of positions, like even the captain position, or if there's 10 police officers, seems like we're short.
I believe with that resolution, we should be at about 21, 22. And we are at, I believe, 16, including myself.
That's like explains why we have 7 students already.
Well, there's a lot of things that go into it, but it definitely helps when you have more officers on the street.
So the other question is, when an officer leaves, you guys fire an officer. Why don't you continue to replace it?
I would like to, yeah, definitely. I would like to have the officers that leave, definitely.
What is stopping you? Council, city manager?
I request it, but it's up to the council and city manager to actually allow me to do that.
So you put safety over money? Then you're going to jump up there and
Okay. Mr. Baines, council speaking, please do not interrupt.
Yeah, so according to the resolution, the council said 2005 on the staff. According to the resolution that the city council has spent 2005, we are under staff right now.
According to the resolution, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. The question I got from city manager or for you is, yes, that resolution is passed, but it's also based on if there are funds available. That's the underlying overriding factor. Can we afford to put 4 more officers? This is the discussion we will have in the budget. Okay, I'm not saying, that's what it comes down to. Because right now, the general fund shows about $300,000 deficit. If you go to 22 officers, you're adding $400,000 or $500,000. Now you have almost $1 million deficit for $800,000. So we have to figure out a way to address that. So that's going to be the factor of it. I think everybody would like to have 1 officer per 1,000 if you can do it, or for 800. But can you write the check and have the employees clear it? If they go to clear it bounces, it's not good to have those people if you can't afford them. So that'll be something we will discuss today, and then we have another workshop. And before the final budget, we'll have to make those determinations at that time. Okay? And one other thing, what is our city policy, or what do we do when officers are out there because of this COVID? We're not supposed to have parties. We're not supposed to have a whole bunch of people get together. So if they, on our routine patrols, if we see someone not adhering to the rules, are we talking to them? What are we doing?
They are supposed to be talking to them, yes. And it depending on the situation, like if it's like a family gathering, it's not a lot of people, that's one thing. Obviously, if it's a major party, yes, they are supposed to get out of their vehicles and talk to them. I encourage the people that if people are doing that, to let us know.
Yeah,
David Thompson from Foster Farms.
One moment, this is not the time right now, so please, I will open this up later for the public, okay?
All right, sorry.
Okay. So what I've been, as our COVID case, not only in the city of Livingston, but Merced County and nearby counties, is continuing to increase, deaths are increasing, we're getting alarming number of calls or people sending messages or onto whatever social media about it. So what I would like to see, and I know officer time is limited, is to maybe do more of an education out there. If they see a whole bunch of people together, we don't want to fight them. We don't want to go there. I mean, it's not really needed. But at least talk to them about if they're not following, COVID rules, that, hey, you guys got to be doing this. Because it is getting pretty scary out there.
Yep.
Livingston is now behind that water. And not all of it is because the lack of measures we took, is because it's very difficult to predict human activity, human travels. Everybody here probably travels to Turlock, Atwater, Merced, and beyond. So the measures we're taking here don't always transfer to another community. However, when they get sick, the number counts against Livingston. So I'm hoping that, and with the council, I don't think anybody would disagree. If we educate them, maybe they'll remember that when they travel outside the city as well. So that is the end goal for there.
As part of the education there that you mentioned, we're also trying to do the best we can to provide those individuals who don't have a face mask with face masks. And we've done that at different levels. So I know that Chief Soria has been communicating that out to his personnel. And so, and then also on the public works side, you know, and city staff. So wherever we can be helpful, we want the public to make sure that they communicate to us what their needs are so that we can help facilitate that. So thank you.
So what about enforcement? We've had education since March, and I believe when we came out with the emergency order, that was our goal, and that was also the goal of Livingston PD, and we addressed that. We addressed certain areas where we had the PD active in the community, and we also had it in the resolution that, you know, we may or may not cite people, but if we're still having these things going on, people are being told and told, there's got to be consequences, because education has already happened, and we keep doing it, and we're still seeing how far they can push it. So what about enforcement?
If we actually have to, then we will, because yes, we have been educating. Not only have we handed out pamphlets, have we put it on social media, yes, the public is. We still do it, okay? We still tell people, hey, you know, this is what, I mean, if we get people that are not compliant, if it comes to that point, then yes, it will come to citations. It has not come to that yet. Most people do comply when if not, I have not had an instance that has been relayed to me where somebody who's been told that they're out of compliance rejected it and said, hey, we're not going to do that. I have not had that issue yet.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard was the mayor say that many times he's been called, many issues have been brought to him in regards to people repeatedly doing things they're not supposed to. Am I wrong?
Yeah, we've had a few falls, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Councilwoman, when I said about not wanting to cite, also still have the discretion. I'm not saying they shouldn't do it, but if they've gone to the same home repeatedly, all the talking is done. If they've gone to the one home and they go to another home, well, you know, it's kind of a difficult call, but that's the judgment I think the officers have to make at that time. The only thing that concerns me is our numbers, how fast they're going up.
I hear you. And all of but say that.
Go ahead, who was?
Oh, no, although that you've been saying you have a lot of calls, I think it's been a drastic, I mean, like every day type calls. I mean, do we get calls from sports complex, kids playing? Yes. Are they different kids playing? Do they actually listen to us and say, okay, sorry, we're going in? Yes, have they been told? Yeah, that's a discretion from the officer because they feel that, you know, it's kind of like speeding where we have that discretion whether or not, you know, this is something that everybody should know. Before you get a license, you have to go to TMP, and that's one of the things that they test. And they have that discretion because they feel it genuine that those people are going to stop doing that. I know I've gotten, I think one of the probably biggest things that I've gotten is the sports complex with kids playing out there. But that's not been the exuberant amount of times that have been called out there, or at least has been relayed to me.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question quickly. Just to go back to the uptick in shootings, what do you think is creating those situations? Is it due to the COVID-19, everybody's at home, unemployment? What do you think is going on?
I think now, when I was asked that question about 3-4 months ago, but now I think it has a lot to do with it because of the fact that people don't have nothing to do. They're not working. I think they're probably frustrated. You know, I mean, a lot of people don't think that a lot of these criminals that are doing things bad out there don't have jobs. They do have jobs. Not all of them, but some of them do. But now they probably don't. So whatever form of income are they going to have? They're going to do whatever they can to actually, to get that money. And what you've been seeing across all across California and in Merced County is a spike in criminal activity, shootings, things of that nature, all over. I'm not saying that I'm trying to justify it, but it is one of the issues that is probably causing.
And in regards of action or reaction from the police department here in Livingston, considering the environment in the country, with defunding the police and all of that, have you guys tried to focus more on community policing, reaching out to certain groups, talk to them, or has it been difficult due to your staffing level?
No. One of the things that when I just met with the supervisors last week, actually Friday, one of the things is what I want to end up doing is something that I did a long time ago, and what we're going to end up doing is I advise them that I want to see our officers get back and start doing foot patrols within the neighborhoods. I want them knocking on doors. I want them introducing themselves. I want them to actually say, hey, that's the best way. That's the way I did it when I was young, and I talked to the people because they're the better source of information, because we're here 8 hours out of the day or 10 hours out of the day. They live here, so they see it every day. So that's why I want my officers to get out there, start handing those business cards out. If there's a problem, call me, because maybe not every one of them will, but if one does, it gives us some information on something, that helps us tremendously. And that's that's one thing. But we're going to start doing that as well.
Thank you. I think that's great. I remember when I was young that police officers would walk the street and hand their business cards. So I think that's a great opportunity to interact with the community, definitely.
Mayor and Council, in addition to that, one of the other things is working really closely with the property owners. It's landowners, property owners is very, very important. So we're making outreach to them as well, because who they lease or rent out their apartments, etc., or their homes, has a lot of impact on who comes here. And we're not talking about discriminatory actions. We're talking about, the background of these individuals and things of that nature. So we're looking into those kind of things, and coupled with what Captain Sawyer has said in community policing and going out there. And then there's been some suggestions by some individuals and community people about establishing neighborhood watch programs and things of that nature. So all those things are certainly going to help. And then you might want to mention also the task force, the gang task force, and the resource there, Captain Sawyer.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I actually brought my detective back from the task force, just hopefully depending on what goes on and where we are with staffing. But they're a tremendous resource. In the event when we have something like this, they can go places we can't. They can do things we can't. They can do things that are monetary that we can't, just because we just don't have the money to do it. But they're a tremendous asset, and they have been used in the past, and just not so recent past, to actually try to identify people that have been doing these things. So I don't really want to get into what they've been doing, because that's kind of like a secret thing that they do. But but they're an asset, and like I said, and we still have that ability to use them. However, if I do end up pulling him out totally, then the chances are we won't, because they obviously, whoever's in there, they go to the people who actually are going to need them first. I mean, I don't know if you heard about recently the shootings that they've been having in Las Vegas. They cleared up some of those shootings by utilizing them and doing different things to actually help them out and identify certain individuals that actually did those shootings there.
Mayor Pro Tem, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to the captain for everything he's done and for the city of Livingston and his officers. So just want to say thanks for, especially in this time right now. So that's what I have right now.
He's praising you, Captain.
What?
He's praising you.
No, I'd just like to say thank you, sir, for everything you've done for us here in the city. So I know these guys go out there, risking their lives every day for us. So just tell you guys
Thank you very much.
And I got one more question. How important is it to have a full staff department?
What? How important is it? What? It's very important. I mean,
And
limited staff. You're gonna say
And do
something?
you think if we had a staff department, would it decrease in the crime that we're actually seeing right now?
I think we can make a better impact. Yeah, definitely with more options. There's different variety of different ways and avenues that you can do to actually address it and curb it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Planning, anything to report?
Yeah, just briefly, there's been a few projects that we've been working on in addition to the village's apartment that we talked about as part of the study session. There is, it's called the Moon Glow truck stop. It's at it's south of the Hammett 99 interchange along Campbell. We've been working with the property owners there. They're doing some environmental work, specifically dealing with traffic. And so we're going through that process, and it will wend its way eventually before the city council. We're also working on the AAA truck wash that has been rejuvenated. The this is behind Motel 6. The applicants have hired a new representative, which is active and knowledgeable. And so, again, there's some traffic issues associated there because of the Winton Parkway, Winton 99 interchange. And so that's an area that we're looking at. And those reports and documents are wending their way into planning. We've talked about a long time ago, but we have the Green Zone Cannabis Business Park proposal, and it's out on Bird Avenue, kind of toward where the police shooting range is. And that is slowly making its way. There had some change in the engineer and so forth, and there's been some delays on that, but it's still coming along. And I just wanted to let you know that we're working on a visionary, is the name of the developer. It's an affordable housing project. It's on B Street behind Rancho San Miguel. And so we're working with them to get their lot. The Gallo folks have put in a parcel map to create the lot. That's been approved by the Minor Subdivision Committee, and we are working with Gallo's engineer to get that final so that the visionary housing company, they can purchase that, record the lot at the county, and then they have a series of submittals for this affordable multifamily project that they are at the ready as soon as they have the legal authority through ownership to do so. So that one's coming, and we're finishing up on some other items as well. But there's a surprising amount of development activity even during the pandemic. So I just wanted to highlight some of the more prominent ones. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to address them.
Council, any questions, Mr. Hack?
Yes, Juan Aguilar. In regards to the visionary, you said it was low-income housing. Is it an apartment complex or is it a
Yes,
home?
it's an apartment complex, and it's multifamily, and it's on an area that is adjacent to higher density, and it would be a higher density project, and that's a key part of its affordability.
Is that part of the total project in that area? I think they might be covering that in your report. Yeah.
Yeah, Councilmember Aguilar, exactly. That 4.5 acres is part of the full 35 acres
Right.
that is owned by the Gallows that is currently being master planned as specific land.
This is basically the first part of that.
So like phase one.
Yes.
I got a question. Would the Swanson House affect that area also?
The whole,
Yeah, it's one of the things that was not mentioned specifically, but the radius, they did talk about the foraging area being 10 miles, but 2.5 miles is basically what the radius is of the city. So all projects within the city will be impacted. Of course, the further you are out, of course, the mitigation measures are different.
So for each project, we would have to do some kind of mitigation.
Yes, for each project it would be different, and the cost can vary tremendously. It can be very minor, and the closer you are to where the nesting and the foraging area is, because one of the things, like for instance, a lot of things goes into the mitigation. For instance, if that property over there is considered to be, ample foraging area for the Swanson hawk, of course, that's going to be something that, there's the mitigation more than likely is going to be bigger. But if it's determined that it's not, that it's just not a foraging area for this particular hawk, then it might be nothing or very minimal mitigation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Council, any further questions? No, thank you. Mr. Bain, anything to report? Okay. Okay, then, Mr. Ramirez?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council and esteemed public, I have a couple of things. We've been working really closely with the property owner, Mr. Vieira, who owns the property right here off of Main and the railroad tracks as part of the ACE train. As you know, we've been working really diligently in trying to showcase the city of Livingston for the San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission to select us to have the ACE train here. For those of you that are not aware of the ACE train, basically the ACE train is called the Altamont Corridor Express train. They currently operate between Lathrop and Manteca all the way out to Stockton, all the way out to San Jose. So it's projected to provide service all the way to Merced by 2025. There has been talk about having a station either in Livingston or Atwater. Of course, we're doing everything that we can on our part to try to showcase Livingston so that we can land that platform here. That is going to definitely give us a huge, shot in the arm, help revitalize our downtown, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So as part of that, we are trying to make the case, and we've done that by showcasing that the property owner is open and supports the project. Two, that we have other businesses, other property owners in the vicinity, including the 35 acres that was just brought up. That is actually being looked at as a transit-oriented development, very close proximity to where we think that the train station should be. And so the master planning and everything around that is going to favor that. We've actually participated in a lot of different meetings. We've had we had a study commission called a commuter study, basically, by the University of the Pacific, and we've basically garnered quite a bit of support from different groups. And in addition to that, we've also done a lot of things in our downtown, kind of orientated towards that, and we pledged some money. So, anyways, we have some meetings coming up with representatives from the San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission and Mr. Vieira and others. We've also made contact with Caltrans, because Caltrans owns a lot of that dead space over there, because we're going to be looking at having plenty of parking, and so we want to showcase that as well, and what we need to plant the seeds for all of that. So just wanted to give Council a quick little update on that. Another item that I wanted to touch bases with everybody about is, as you know, the utility stakeholders has been entertaining, looking at ways to decrease the utilities being used over at the wastewater treatment plant. So we've looked at different proposals. Staff has done an analysis of the different proposals that have been provided. So we're going to be having a utility stakeholders meeting coming up soon to get some direction and feedback, so that we can then bring to council and see if we can turn the corner on this before the end of the year. And lastly, we'll be talking about it in our budget workshop after this council meeting, but just wanted to talk a little bit about you guys have probably heard of Buy America. So anything that we try to buy within the city and we get funding from the feds, it's required that we do everything we can to buy American parts. Well, one of those objects is a diesel street sweeper, and we've had the money to buy the street sweeper for a while. Unfortunately, we can't find one that does not it's all American, and so we've kind of just been sitting there, and we haven't been able to get a waiver. And so the current sweeper that we have is on its last leg, and so we're going to have to make a decision. Either we push that off, go with the CNG, or go with the diesel, or wait for the funding. So anyways, just wanted to share a little bit about that, and that's all I have, unless council has any questions.
Council, any questions for city manager?
Yes, Jose, I have a couple questions on Aguilar. Can you give us an update in regards to the ongoing efforts regarding COVID-19? I know you have ongoing discussions with businesses, clinics, all that stuff. So just general update for the public.
Yes, thank you very much, Councilman. So as it relates to the businesses, we continue to engage our different businesses, like for instance the hair salon, the beauty shops. I know our weather is not cooperating too much, and sometimes it's not feasible, but we've actually have worked with them to move some of their operations outdoors. Okay, in some places it works, some other places it doesn't work. Not because they can't do it outside, but because they don't have the space, or they don't have the permission from the property owner, or they might be close to a food vendor, and they don't want to get into any problems of, hair blowing around. So that's one example. Another one is talking to other businesses in terms of what can they do as it relates to being able to cut costs and continue to stay open, whether it be technical workshops, access to funding, reducing their menu, etc. So my plan is to continue to provide all the businesses, because each business is different. So we're not trying to do a cookie-cutter approach. What we want to do is specifically tailor everything to the business itself, whether it's a car lot or whether it's a restaurant, etc. So we're going to be engaging with some professionals out there to continue to provide one-on-one for our businesses here in town. Specifically on the COVID situation, one of the hot spots is of course Foster Farms. Everybody knows that because of the the media, etc. But the mayor and I, we've been engaged with representatives continuously, and the health department, and our board of supervisor representative, and the state. And so just trying to figure out ways to better help curb this epidemic that we currently have. We can always do more and always do better, and so but it really starts at home with our residents and making sure that we protect each other. And so the simple protocols of face masks, washing your hands, and not having large gatherings and things of that nature, that is certainly going to help. But we're going to continue to educate, Councilmember Aguilar. We're going to continue to educate, use our different platforms to do that. Folks have City Hall phone numbers. We, at the parks, again, the parks are closed only for walking and exercising, but they can't be out there, playing sports. We took down the rims, basketball rims, and we've put barricades up. Let's see, what else have we done? Of course, over at City Hall, we're only open between 8 and noon, so trying to minimize the exposure, not only to the employees, but also to residents. We disinfect every Friday. We disinfect our facilities. We purchased early on, at the very beginning of the pandemic, we were ahead of the curve. We purchased some blowers that blow out the disinfectant mist, and so we've actually helped the school district and others with that. So it's a team effort. So thank you for asking.
I have a question that was submitted by Gabriel. Thank you for submitting your question. And it is a very good question. In case if somebody wants to report gatherings or violation of face coverings or businesses not following protocol, what is the procedure to report it to the city? Is there have we made a hotline number? And some people are afraid of retaliation and they want to keep it confidential when they're reporting. Just give us a little.
Thank you for pointing that out, Gabe. Hey, no, but there's actually different formats to do that. One, you're certainly welcome if you know the PD's number. Definitely call PD, and we have a process. Okay, whether it's in the city or in the county. But bottom line is that there is a hotline. Okay, and we are more than happy to provide that number to you. So there is a hotline. You can be anonymous, and again, you can call the hotline or you can call the city. PD. If you feel more comfortable, calling City Hall and just giving that information to somebody at City Hall, fine. I mention that because PD is open 24 hours. City Hall, of course, is only open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. But any of those platforms, you're welcome to call. We will definitely act on it.
Thank you, sir. I have another question. Just for clarification purposes, I'm very happy that Type 6 is out, being used. However, that contract between the city and the state, correct? It's not between the city and the county. So in regards to response in the city or the county, if you can just clarify that, please.
Sure, understand. So absolutely. So because this is a state response, so as Brian alluded to earlier today, we have a direct contract with the state. So they actually asked for our to be able to use our equipment, and this contract that was signed just recently allows us to go ahead and have that interaction with the state and get reimbursed for that unit being used out and about. Anything associated with that unit currently within the county, we're still working on. I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Brian. Yeah.
While we're waiting for Brian to come up, this is why I thank the state and the city, not the county. It was intentional.
So my understanding is that the county and the city are still working on upgrading their contract that was from 1994 and 95.
95, yeah.
Yeah, and so that will be part of the new contract once it is. And I know it's been somewhat delayed because of the COVID stuff and meeting, so I don't know. That'd be a question that he probably would have to answer more in depth. But
yeah, so basically we're going to be working together. He actually reached out to me, I believe at the beginning of this week, and before as well. So we're going to be working on basically updating that 1990. If I remember correctly, I think it's 1995. We'll get that done and taken care of.
Yeah, that sounds correct. I knew it was right in that area.
Yeah, I think we'll say, could we make that a priority? I think we've been talking about this for a while, and let's get on it. Yeah, I think it is 95.
Well, just for clarification purposes, though, there's never been an issue. We can actually operate under, and we have been operating under the 1995 contract. Unfortunately, they want to modify it, and I'm okay with the modification. I think we should, actualizarlo, which is bring it, execute it. There you go.
Oh yeah, definitely agree with that.
And just so you know, Chief Ron's working with the other two cities in the county too to work on the contract. So it's not just here. He's pretty busy trying to make all the contracts fair to everybody. So.
Anything else, Mr. Edward? Any other questions for the city manager? Okay, if not, then we'll go to Councilmember announcements report. Mr. Aguilar?
No. Nothing to report at this time. Thank you.
Councilmember Kang? Councilmember Batista? Your report, Chad? Anything?
I don't have anything.
Okay, for me, I just have one thing to report, and I wanted to thank Supervisor Espinoza and all other 4 supervisors for voting no on raising our half-cent sales tax. The 6 city mayors got together. We wrote a letter to the Board of Supervisors in opposition to the half-cent sales tax. Some of the points we held out was they wanted to put up a $11 million refurbishment for the city, for the county jail, or $30 million for the new jail, and we pointed out that half-cent would generate $17 million a year for 15 years. That's $255 million. How does that equal to $30 million jail? They're asking for $255 million. It doesn't make sense. And they did not designate what they were going to use the money for, but based on the meeting, they got a lot of pushback, not only from the mayors, but public at large. So I think having gone down 5-0 and not passing, I think they realized that they were not going to make a wiser decision. So, but I do want to thank all of you guys at this time for coming to their senses and not trying to push this through. So other than that, I have nothing else to report. So we'll go to public hearings. This is a public hearing, a resolution approving the site plan design review 2020-03 for construction of the 2 duplexes at 849 Cruiser Street. So that's the APN. So Mr. Hatch.
Okay, thank you. If I could ask Dana to put up the first PowerPoint slide. Okay, and if we could then go to the first substantive item. Okay, there, that's perfect. What we have is that the applicants and owner are requesting a site plan and design review approval to construct 2 duplexes on a R2 zoned lot in the northeast corner of Crusoe and F Street, where the arrow is shown on the map right there, where I've highlighted the laser. And what is being proposed are 2 duplexes on this lot So that is 4 units. Each unit would contain 3 bedrooms, which again, as I mentioned earlier, talking about the Village's apartment, we like 3-bedroom rental units because they serve a need that we have here in the city. So each contains 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, kitchen, living, dining room, and indoor laundry facilities. If we could go to the next slide. Thank you. It's a little hard to see, but these 2 units are side by side on this lot, and they would, 2 of the units, one on each building, would face the west, and the other 2 would face the east. On the east, there is an alley that is slated for paving by the city. So that's perfect, and there are 4 parking spaces to provide parking for the 2 units that face the alley, and there are 4 parking spaces, one of which is handicapped accessible, that face Crusoe Street. So, what we have here is, bicycle parking would also be provided, and a small.
One moment. Will everybody please check your mic? Someone's microphone.
You're not out here every single day.
No.
This would be okay. You guys put way too much.
Someone just called and their mic is on.
You guys understand? I told you, hey, we got games coming soon.
Okay, continue, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. There is a small landscaped area in front of each kitchen that has appropriate drought-tolerant shrubs and ground covers. The exterior of the duplex, if we can get the next slide, it shows the elevations. Thank you. And the duplexes themselves up to the roof peak are 14.5 feet high. The exterior is a stucco finish in a medium brown, and I think you were supplied in your packet with color samples. And that's the stucco color, and then the trim would be a cream color. It's called tea light. The roof is composition shingles, and as you can see on the elevation, I can show you with the laser right here on both frontages, there is an entrance feature, porch-like projection in front of the plane of the building, and this gives protection to the front door, and it also adds architectural interest, and there's a decorative vent louver that you can barely see right there, and so it adds some interest to the elevations. Staff referred this proposal to various departments and agencies for comments, and the city engineer made normal conditions in terms of connection to the sewer and water and so forth. There are also a requirement in our conditions of approval that they would annex into the community facility district, number 2017-1. That's the most recent that you approved, and so they would be part of that. And they also would, let's see, there is a condition that they have to dedicate some right-of-way to B Street. Now, I have looked at the situation, and the lot is sufficient that there is enough room for the proposal with the dedication, and it meets the zoning requirements in terms of a 5-foot setback behind the fence on B Street and a 5-foot setback from the interior side corner. So it complies with all standards. This did go before the Planning Commission for a recommendation to you. They did recommend unanimously approval. I can just add, since we talked about it at our study session, this qualifies for a categorical exemption for CEQA. So there's no issue with the Swenson's Hawk here, so we don't have to think about that. And so that's a good thing. So they qualify for a categorical exemption, and the Planning Commission voted 5-0 to recommend approval, given the attached conditions and findings that are in your packet. So that concludes my verbal report. Is there any questions that I could try to address?
Council, before we begin some questions, I was contacted by the neighbors, and they have indicated that they sent email to the city, and no one responded to them.
Well, if I may, we did get a email that talked about a garage not on this property that they felt was an obstruction to entering and exiting the alleyway, and that is something that we have to turn over to the building department, which is handling code enforcement, to see if that garage is in violation. It's not part of this project. It's not on the lot of this project. It really has, we have no authority for this project to require an off-site condition. So I did mention that at the Planning Commission hearing, but perhaps the person wasn't listening in at that meeting. But so that's the response.
Were the person sent the email, were they responded to?
No, we did it orally at the Planning Commission.
And this project is right next door to where they live right now?
I didn't understand. Try again, sir.
Okay, no problem. The people that sent the email to you regarding access to the alleys and everything else, they are right next door?
I don't know.
They said they made an attempt, come to the city, and they asked you by name. You were not there. And then they came another day, the city hall was closed. This is more than one person.
Mm-hmm.
So about 3 or 4 people contacted in the neighborhood. They're putting together a petition to come before the council to say they have some questions about the zoning, when the zone was changed. And so they have some questions. So I'm going to ask the council, we're going to hold a hearing, but give those neighbors the opportunity to come. They were not able to make this meeting, and so they're not, I don't know if they're opposed to the project or not, but they feel that the whole neighborhood, no hearing, no say in it when it went to the planning commission. So what I'm going to ask is go ahead and move the process, then ask the council to table this item to the next meeting, and that way we have plenty of time. Come and ask you questions, come and ask staff questions, to see if there's anything that needs to be addressed if they have concerns on. Because it does trouble me that if they emailed you or the city and no one responded, reading an email into the record is not necessarily what the resident knows. And they have no idea what they could do. So go ahead with the presentation. Council, we can ask questions, but I will have to delay the decision. Go ahead with that.
Okay, I'm just looking in the file, see if we have any copy or record of this email. At this point, I can't ascertain one way or the other. The applicant is available.
Yeah.
And basically, I've concluded my remarks.
Yeah, so, we can't have a public hearing because we did schedule it. So let's go ahead and hold the hearing.
Yeah, it's open for public comment.
This item is open to the public. Does anybody from the audience or at home want to comment on this item at this time?
Yes, Jason Roth, 1629 First Court. The citizens' comments, what were they exactly? I could not understand.
Mr. Roth, I received an email that the homeowners in that area sent an email to the city, but they got no response from the city. They made attempts to come to the city hall, but some of them were not aware that the city hall was only open in the morning, not in the afternoon. They felt that they were not able to look at the plan, talk to staff. One of them did manage to talk to Philomena, but they were looking to speak to Mr. Hatch, not Philomena. So they feel that they had not been completely heard yet.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else in the public?
Hi, good evening, Jose Moran, Livingston, California, 945 Parkview Drive. Just an observation. I'm still trying to figure this out. And by comparison, can you go to the slide stuff? And I'm no expert. I'm not an engineer, but the way that the doors to go into the residence, the way they're designed, based on this, it looks like the doors are going to go, they're going to open outward instead of opening inward, like they normally. I'm not sure if I'm seeing it correctly. But normally doors open in, but the way I'm kind of reading it here, it looks like the doors are opening to the outside. Facing this?
Yes.
Yeah.
They curve in.
Okay. Well,
They swing in.
well, or maybe I'm. Okay. So. All right. Well, that was my only observation, and I still got a lot to learn, but it's just kind of low for people. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public? Anybody at home that's at the phone meeting wish to speak? If not, this item is now closed to the public. Comment?
Yeah, I would like to speak on something.
So, in the alley, you have a couple light poles? Is that no fence anyway, or is there no work around that?
In the alley, there's a few light poles. Is that affect the way that, on the alley, there's like a 3 or 4 light poles. Is that affect the parking on there, or are they remove those or leave those alone?
No, it does not affect the parking or maneuvering room into the parking space.
Oh, a quick question. In regards to the R2 zoning, that allows for a duplex
Yes,
versus R3 zoning?
yes, R3 would be something like a fourplex or larger, and there are several duplexes in the immediate neighborhood. To the north of B Street is R2 zoning, and that allows for duplexes. To the south of B Street is R1, which is single-family home. So this is on B Street, but it's on the north side of B Street, the R2 side. I did go around the neighborhood on my site visit, and there are several duplexes in the immediate vicinity within that one block area. So, you know, it is a permitted use, subject to site plan design review, and it has been R2 for a number of years. It's not a recent change by any means.
Just for historical purposes, this used to be owned by, was it the county Office of Education, or was it always privately owned?
This particular lot, I haven't done a records research, so I don't know if this was ever part of the school or the county or anything like that. I believe, because where it is located, that this has been, you know, a private.
Oh, okay.
It was a hilltop facility at one time.
It was a
Okay.
In regards to,
Some time ago.
Merced County Action Agency.
in regards to
Merced County
being in front of a Head Start or, you know, the Child Development Center, were there any safety precautions discussed by the Planning Commission in regards to, I don't know, anything in regards to safety?
No, so that issue didn't come up in any respect.
Okay. Councilor Batista? Any comments at this time?
No,
You're on mute.
that you wanted to hold off on any decisions based on the neighbor.
Yes. The
Public
reason
notice
why-
sent out. I mean, if they reached out to you, how come they didn't do it again?
Because they only reached out to me at 6 o'clock today. And they said they had difficulty going into City Hall, and they said no one responded to their email. And so they're asking that if they can hold the decision to the next meeting so they can come before to make their comments. Because,
Okay, so exactly what is their petition for?
well, I don't know what the concerns about the petition. They will, I assume the petition would have the concerns listed. So they're asking us to consider this at the next meeting.
Is the developer here?
I would like to say something. We're in the timeline of the project. And because the neighbors, they're not here, so we're going to have another meeting for that.
Well, I'm just forwarding their concerns. They're asking us to hold a decision until they can attend the meeting. Or attend the meeting. They just want to come and attend the meeting and ask a question.
I have a question for the council in general. Like, if we hold it off 2 weeks to the next meeting, is there going to be any difference on the way we move forward? I mean, is there going to be something so detrimental they're going to bring up that it's going to cancel the project or not approve it? I really doubt it. I mean, unless you have other insight.
Well, this is a decision we have to make. Do we want to hold off and listen to them before we make our decision? Or have we already made up our mind without the comments? This is something we have to address ourselves.
In regards to the public hearing, and they have the ability to comment right now, or comment during this public hearing, correct? Is there any way we can contact them by phone?
Well, I can't speak for them. They have asked. They sent an email to the city, was never responded to. So if they were expecting some sort of response from the city, and we didn't give it, then we have to take that into consideration, or it's up to each individual member to see if that we should have answered or not answered the question.
Okay, I got a question. It's Raul.
Who did they send it
to the city?
I did respond to them.
Mr. Hatch. Pardon? To Mr. Hatch.
I'm sorry.
Yes, Lieutenant. According to what they told me, they sent the email to Mr. Hatch.
Yes. And can we confirm that with him right now? I mean, and why, if they did send
He
it
sent
to
an email. Yes.
Do you have?
Yes, right here.
But they didn't get any response.
He said he did earlier.
I responded at
During
the
the
public
meeting.
hearing.
To the email?
To the question that was raised at the email, and I responded in my presentation to you. It was the question of an adjacent garage that what they felt blocked the alleyway.
But they also, well, that's what they're saying, and they're next door to the project. So you said you responded to their email, correct?
I responded to the issue at the public hearing.
No,
I didn't respond through an email.
That's what I'm asking. They got no response from the city. And so this is what they're saying.
And that's true.
That's what they're saying.
Okay, so they didn't receive a response from the city. However, the response would be that the garage has nothing to do with this project, so it's not going to matter at the end of the day. Correct?
That is correct.
And I did also get some information, third party, concerned about the closing the investigative being a business corner, that's why I asked. I never got any concern regarding the garage, anything else that would put the project in jeopardy.
Okay. Does the applicant still have anything further to add? Do you have anything to add? Anything further?
Just so we're in a timeline, as I said, we're on a schedule to get this done.
What would a 2-week delay, how would it affect the project?
The delay?
Yeah, the delay, yeah.
Well, we got the architects, civil engineers, everybody working on this project right now.
What would it be the approximate cost of delay? Would it be significant?
Engineers, it starts $150 an hour. Projects like 20,000, 30,000.
To me, I mean, it's unfair because he's investing into his project, and I'm not seeing anything that's gonna change or, put a stop to it. So, I mean, it's not fair for him. I mean, if we're gonna do business like that in the city where, we're having people go through landmines, to develop something that is just not fair.
Let's move forward.
Just make a motion. Rose Rodriguez.
Okay, does public have any comment at this time?
Hi, thank you, Mayor. This is Jose Moran, once again, Livingston, California. I was here during the Planning Commission meeting, so that must have been an opportunity for anyone that had any concerns to be here and express the concern. And even though they might have already contacted you like earlier today or 5 or 6, they still have the opportunity to be here. So
Can I reach the mic here, please?
those were two missed opportunities for them to be here and express their concerns. So up to a certain point, it seems like it's not fair for the developer in this case, especially because it cost them X amount of money to wait out 2 weeks. So that'll be something for you guys to consider as well. Thank you.
And you're absolutely correct, because there is a process, like the planning commission, public hearing. So are we done with discussion, or are we still going?
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, Jason Roth again.
Mr. Ross, you've already spoken already? But you know what, I did allow Mr. Moran to speak twice, so go ahead, sir.
Are the folks there that are opposing this?
Oh.
Go ahead, Mr. Ross.
Are the folks there that need questions answered in city chamber or council chambers right now?
No, they are trying to organize their petition to get all the neighbors together.
Well, my honest opinion is they had their opportunity with the Planning Commission and also throughout the whole time to be here tonight to voice their opinion, and they're not there. And I agree with Jose Moran that they are holding up the builder. They're holding up people's livelihoods, if you will, and they're holding up the city. So I feel that you guys truly need to make a motion. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll just say one more time that citizen was not responded to. So if that's going to be from now on, a citizen contacts us, we're going to read it to record but not respond to them, then I think that will be the new way for Livingston to do business. And I totally believe this is wrong. They're going to be your neighbors. You should hear them out. 2 weeks, I know it's painful, but you should still reach out to your neighbors now, not, it makes for better neighbors, reaching out to them. As expensive it may be, give them an opportunity to vent themselves to avoid problems in the future. But that's up to the council. Go ahead, sir.
Just a quick question. Louis That's my voice on to court. The staff report noted that the city needs affordable housing. How do we know if these are going to be like affordable rental units or market rate? Because I don't know if that can be predicted already. How do we know that? Just curious. Gabriel Salazar? Thank you. Yes, I do. Is the question clear? Okay. Thank you.
So as it relates to the question, he would like to know, and you'd like to ask, he's basically asking the developer or the developers if these are going to be market rate housing, affordable housing, under what category are they intending to enter the market, the housing market?
saying it's going to be affordable, $950 a month. Yeah, that's steep. They're the owners of the.
Okay. Anything else?
Okay. Council comment?
My final comment is that I understand communication is important. I do believe that we should probably do a better job responding to emails and all of that in the future. But I'm not seeing, based on the email they sent you, I'm not seeing, obviously it's not part of the project, I'm not seeing anything that would be detrimental to the project. If I would have seen something based on the email that might be detrimental, then I would say, let's hold on. But at this time, I'm not seeing anything like that. And based on information I have and your email. So I think we should move forward. The time is money, and at the same time, they're also Livingston residents. They're our neighbors. He's spending money here. He's investing money here, and I don't want to hold them back. I mean, there is a process. Maybe Jose could reach out to this other family and tell them what the process is, so in the future they know where to go to the planning commission and all of that.
Hey, Mr. King?
Yes, I also agree with Jose Moran, Jason Rodman, Juan Aguilar. They had a couple opportunities to come reach out to the planning commission, even if they call in. It seems like they didn't care enough. I think we should go on with this project.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Batista? Are you muted?
Again, I'm in full agreement with what's been said here. The people that responded are requested through email did have plenty of opportunities through planning commission, through all the procedures that you have set here in order to adopt this resolution. So I'm in favor of make that motion. So.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, I agree with the other council. I say we just move on voting this today.
Okay, thank you. And for me, I'll state it one more time. You said they have other opportunities, and projects go next to them. There will be no other opportunities. This does. And if we have something happen next to us, then we would feel different. And people out there are not professionals. They don't all understand the procedures. So I ask again, give the people a right to speak. I'm not against the project. Just give them an opportunity to speak. Let them say it. Let them say their piece. But that is up to you guys. So at this time, if anybody wants to make a motion? You were still on mute. You're on mute.
You heard the site? Read it all again.
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve the resolution of the City Council of the City of Livingston approving site plan and design review 2020-03 for 2 residential duplexes at 849 Princess Street, Livingston, California.
I have a motion by Councilman Batista. Do you have a second?
Yes, I'll second it.
Second by Councilman Kang. May I have roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguilar?
Yes.
Councilmember Baptista?
Yes.
Councilmember King?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia?
Yes.
Mayor Samra?
And not to silence the people, but voice, I vote no.
Item passes 4-1.
Thank you very much. Okay, move on to citizens' comment. Members of the public when wishing to address the City Council, the first on the agenda allows the members of the public to address the City Council any items not otherwise on the agenda. Members of the public recognize the mayor should come forward to the lectern and identify themselves. Comments are not limited to 3 minutes in accordance with the open meeting laws. No action will be taken by City Council decision. For items which are on the agenda this evening, members of the public will be provided an opportunity to address the City Council as each item is brought up. I do believe we still have a representative of Foster Farms. Are you still online, sir? Do we still have a representative from Foster Farms? I don't hear. Okay. Does anybody from the public wish to make a comment this time?
Yeah, hi, my name is Steve Reynolds, and I live on the Claret Circle. And I was calling because my concern is I have a handicapped father, and when I push him around over on Colleen Court, there's a trailer that's blocking the sidewalk, and I've made numerous attempts to report it, but it's a hazard.
Did you get that, Chief? You're talking about somebody blocking the sidewalk. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? Since no one's coming forward, citizen comments are now closed. The said agenda, items on the consent calendar considered routine and non-controversial will be enacted by one vote unless a separate action is requested by the city manager or city council member. There is no separate discussion of these items unless the members of the city council or city manager request that a specific item be removed. Number 4, approval of warrant register dated July 30, 2020. Number 5, approve the minutes meeting held on June 2nd, 2020. Number 6, resolution adopting City of Livingston National Employee Schedule effective July 2020. Does anybody wish to make a motion? Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Bautista. Do you have a second? I have a second by Councilman Aguilar. Do you have roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguilar?
Yes.
Councilmember Baptista? Councilmember King?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia?
Yes.
Mayor Samra?
Yes.
Passed 5-0.
Okay, number 7, this is a resolution, City Council, City of Livingston, approving the employment agreement between the City of Livingston and Anthony Chavarria for the position of Public Works Director. Number 7.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council. Some of the highlights of the employment agreement are as follows. This is a 3-year contract. He's been with us for 3 years. So the contract before you is for 3 years. He is an at-will employee. His salary is $117,432, which is a step B under the Public Works salary schedule. Mr. Chavarria is part of the CalPERS, and he's going to pay 4% of the 7% employee share. His health benefits are basically the same as all the other employees, and his severance package is 2 months.
Council discussion?
Yes, one of the things I noticed on this hours of work is that
Is this all on you?
no, it's not. That he's only working 40 hours. $80 is the same contract as the chief contract also. $85, 40 hours.
Of course, it's up to council. This was discussed under closed session. So if you can specify a little bit further, Councilmember King. So if I understand you correctly, of course, Mr. Chavarria is is a salary employee, so he certainly does work more than 40 hours a week. We don't pay him overtime. And the city manager is the one who changes the schedule if need be. So if you could help me understand a little bit further.
Like if you look at the chief contract on page 3, 13, they say that chief will be more than 40 hours per week and 8 hours a day. On the actually, it just says 40 hours. Are we talking about in there? So that what contract is equal?
Okay.
I would have to make that change.
I know that Mr. Chavarria is on the line. I'm sure he doesn't have a problem with that. So it's basically a 40-hour week, 8 to 5, 8 hours. 5 hours. And for the public who are trying to understand what Mr. Kang is saying, he's a salaried employee. He just wants to add language that says 8-hour days, but he of course works more than 8-hour days. Like today is a council meeting day or any other function that we might have.
Is Anthony on the line?
Yes, Council, I'm on the line listening.
Well, I say, you have any comment on that?
As the city manager stated, I work many hours as need be over the 40 hours. Don't know what the difference will be stating in a contract or 8 hours a day is going to make. Would the council like to elaborate a little bit more, Councilmember King?
Well, I just wanted to be fair with two contracts. Or if not, we could take out the contract also. Just leave it 40 hours of work week. I was just trying to be fair.
Yeah, I'm okay as it is written for 40 hours a week. I mean, I normally put in a little more.
So based on what Public Works Director Chavarria said, he has no problem adding that additional language on the contract.
Either, I don't know, add it or subtract it, or
yeah, either or.
I don't know. It's up, I don't know if it matters.
It's from my viewpoint, Council, it's the same. It's the same. It's just different language. So, but for simplicity purposes, as Councilmember Kang mentioned, we can go ahead and either take it out or put it in. Either's fine.
If we're going to take it out, we might as well on the chief's contract, take that clause out, just leave 40 hours. Or we're going to leave it on the chief's and we got to add it, just to be fair. There are two department heads and we don't want to treat them different.
Well, anybody can entertain the motion and with that, and then when we address the other one, we'll do the same thing.
Yeah. So either way, I mean, I don't. What preference you guys have? Like, does it matter? What's that?
Yes, I got it. Yes, I would like to move resolution to the council of Livingston, approving the employment agreement between the city of Livingston and Anthony Chavarria for the position of public works direction. Only thing I want to change is that 8-hour shift. At
second it. Oh, sorry. Real quick, can we go back real quick? I say it would be better to take out the 8-hour thing, and that gives the city manager the ability to work with their work schedule instead of putting it specific to 8 hours. Is that
Yeah. What we're doing is making these changes. I want to make sure that Mr. Chavez is okay with it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, that's fine. We could leave it the way it is, as long as we take it out of the contract. So that way yeah, we could leave it the way it is. But with the city contract, we'll take that clause out of there. So that way.
And then, and then the city manager, if you could do your thing. Just leave it like it is, and then we'll change the chief.
Wow, you cut.
Okay, I would like to make a motion, resolution of the City Council of Livingston approving the employment agreement between the City of Livingston and Anthony Chavarria for the position of Public Works Director.
I'll second it.
Councilmember Aguilar,
Yes.
Councilmember Baptista, Councilmember Kane,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia,
Yes.
Mayor Samra. Passed 5-0.
Yes, Mayor, Council, and esteemed public. Some of the highlights for, by the way, this is for Captain Soria, soon to be Chief Soria. The term of the agreement is 1 year. He's planned to retire in June. Number two, he is an at-will employee. His salary is $146,640, Step E. He's also a CalPERS annuitant, and he pays 7%, which is the employee share. He has the same health benefits as the rest of the employees. And the holidays shall not be entitled to observe all authorized holidays at full pay. Post-retirement benefits for those employees hired prior to July 1st, 1989, and who retires from the city's employment under the Public Employees Retirement System will continue to pay the premiums for health and dental coverage in an amount equal to as if Soria were still employed by the city. Clothing allowance will be at $500 per paid yearly. Per year, paid quarterly, that is. And the severance package is 11-month severance package. Again, this is not going to, the maximum of the severance pay shall not exceed an amount equal to the monthly base salary under this agreement multiplied by the number of months left of his employment. That's all. And so if we subtract the language that we were stating under Mr. Chavarria's, that can be modified, and then council can certainly make a motion.
Make a motion to approve the resolution of the City Council of the City of Livingston approving employment agreement between the City of Livingston and Christopher Soria for the position of Chief of Police of the City of Livingston, with the proposed language change regarding the 8-hour shift. Correct?
Yeah. I have a motion by
Yes, I'll second.
Councilmember Aguilar?
Hold on.
Oh.
Mr. Sir, you want to make a comment? Go ahead.
No, you're talking about the
After the vote, I'll make a comment. If there's no comment after the vote. Go ahead. Before we go to vote, I didn't open this up to the public. Has anyone from the public wish to comment?
Yes, Mayor, this is Chief Ruben Chavez of Augustine Police Department.
Go ahead, Mr. Chavez.
Yeah, I just, after working with the captain for the last 8 years, I have a lot of respect for him, and I couldn't think of anybody better to serve the community of Livingston than Chris. He's a great man. He'll do a great job, and I just want to encourage you guys to just take good care of him.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. Does anyone else in the public wish to comment? You know what? I still have a motion.
Yes.
Okay. Then we'll call please.
Sure. Councilmember Aguilar?
Yes.
Councilmember Baptista? Councilmember King?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia?
Yes.
Mayor Samra? Motion passes 5-0.
Congratulations.
Well, first I want to say I want to thank Jose, City Manager, the Mayor Samra, Mayor Pro Tem Garcia, Councilmember King, Aguilar, and Baptista for having the faith in me to actually protect the city within the next roughly year and try to do the best that I can, which I will try. I've been working here a long time, and I'm going to do as much as I can within the little time that I have left. But one of the things that I want to do, and I'm going to make sure that I continue to do, is that I have an open line of communication with the public. I want to keep that. I want my officers to be like that. I want us to be a pulse, even if it's for the next 11 months. I don't want to just sit down and go out yeah, I got it, and I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that this city continues to be the best it can, both in law enforcement. And the other thing is I want to make sure that I know I kind of went back and forth with this, but you know that one of the biggest reasons why I did do it is because of the personnel that I have. I have the faith in each and every one of them, from my patrol officers, my supervisors, to my administrative staff, dispatchers. You know, they're an excellent bunch of people. They really are. And I just hope that the next 11 months that I can continue to give the citizens of this community a very professional police service to all of you, and that we don't falter in any way. And if there is anything that I can do to make it better, my ears are always open to do that. So I want to thank everybody for having the faith in me and doing this job. I don't take it lightly. I won't. I will continue not only put in my 8 hours and 40 hours a week, but I'll do more so than that. I will. I always have always been one to actually put in free time. I don't have a problem with that. But now I have to, but it doesn't make a difference. Whether I'm getting paid salary or overtime, I'll do it. I'll do it for free because I'll do it for the people here. And thank you all again. Thank you.
Okay, so, Chief, when are we going to do your swearing in? I'm sorry?
Okay. Tomorrow.
Okay, how about this Friday morning?
I thought it was going to be evening.
I'm sorry?
I thought, okay, that's fine.
Okay, Friday morning.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Do you wish to have it in public or privately? Well,
That's a roundabout.
get with the city manager and pick up the location. Okay? All right. Thank you. Okay, item number 9. This is the resolution appointing 3 Parks and Recreation Arts Commissioners and 1 alternate commissioner.
Good evening, everyone. I'm bringing before you this evening a resolution in hopes to appoint 3 recreation commissioners and 1 alternate. There has been a slight change since the last time this was brought before you guys, in that Eric Aguilar has asked to be withdrawn from his application, withdrawn because of family commitments and being very busy. So the applications that you have before you are Linda Diol, Hector Becerra, Heather Garibay, and Dennis Brzezinski.
Okay, this item is open to the public. Does anybody wish to comment? If not, then I will close it to the public. Council discussion?
Any of the applicants on the line?
Okay.
Yes, I did contact them to make sure. And they were also notified about tonight about being able to call in.
Okay. If nobody's online, council discussion? Here. Unmute.
We've gone over this previously. We reviewed the applications numerous times. The only difference, like Jackie has stated, is the withdrawal of 1 candidate. So with only 4 being there, can I go ahead and make a recommendation?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, I'd like to see that we have Hector Becerra, Dennis Brzezinski, Edward Garibay as the commissioners, and our alternate, Linda Diol.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Batista. Do you have a second? A second by Councilmember Aguilar. May I have roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguilar?
Yes.
Councilmember Batista?
Yes.
Councilmember King?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia?
Yes.
Mayor Samra?
Yes.
Passed 5-0.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that said, the event is done. But are we going to continue with our workshop, or are we going to save it for another day?
Don't we have one coming up on Thursday?
Yeah, we do have it. So the pleasure of the council, do we wish to go back to our workshop for the budget, or do we move it to the...
I got 2 questions for the public safety.
Go ahead.
Okay,
I'm sorry?
We're going back to workshop? Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem, you had a comment?
Yes, are we having one on Thursday?
Yes, we are.
So I say we just continue it Thursday. I mean,
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem is asking to continue to Thursday. Does anybody else wish to?
Want to continue Thursday?
Huh?
What did you say?
Mayor Pro Tem wants to go to Thursday.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Kale, we're gonna stop the workshop here. We will continue on Thursday. So, council, any further business? If not, we are in adjournment.